Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition on the Lymphedema channel, where we shine the spotlight on men and women, even children, who are facing a lymphedema diagnosis, and they are managing this condition successfully. Straight from surgery, honest to God. She just had surgery. Amy Beaith is with us all the way from Edmonton. And Amy, first of all, it's a pleasure to meet you. And what kind of surgery did you just have?
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you too, Brenda. The surgery that I had is the suction assisted protein lipectomy, the SAPL surgery, where it's kind of like a debulking with micro lymphatic tubules.
It's a
Where they make
lot.
kind of a bunch of different little incisions where you've got fibrotic tissue built up. And the idea is to remove that fibrotic tissue, which is really hard to compress. So even if you are super compliant, over the years, that fibrotic tissue can really build up and create kind of problems with flow. It can create problems with increased infections. And that's where I was. And that's kind of how I ended up finding out about it years ago. Is I was kind of hitting a wall. I just kept having an infection after infection after infection, and no matter what I did, and I'd had like 25 different infections, and they were just getting more aggressive every time I got one.
Wow.
It would just spread super quick, and so I didn't know what to do. And then I, through Instagram, through a wonderful lymphedema community on there, heard about these surgeries, and I just was like, what? I've never heard of these in Canada, like never, ever, ever. And so being a former health librarian, I was just like, I have to learn about this. I have to know what this is about. And so just worked through the process here to try and get surgery covered. Unfortunately, it wasn't. I had to pay out of pocket. But I was really fortunate to have a wonderful surgeon the first time, who is Dr. Corinne Becker. And she's a pioneer in the field. She's been doing the surgeries for 30 plus years. So I met her, and over a couple times, and then we had the surgery in 2018. So it was 3 years ago, almost to the day, that they operated on my left leg. And then I wasn't able to go back to see her. So I just kind of had to wait. And luckily enough, there's now some surgeons in Canada who are doing the procedures. And there was one here in Alberta. So I was so happy for that, because I didn't have to travel too far from home this time.
And so obviously you had a good experience with your first surgery
I
and good
did, yeah.
results. So you're like, okay, let's go around for round two then.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure whether I would go ahead with round two after the first one. The first one was so beneficial. What was really interesting is that not only did they operated on my left leg, but what was interesting is my right leg benefited. It lost almost the same volume after the surgery, even though they didn't touch it. And I think that's just how our inner watershed works together, right? Like sometimes one leg will carry more than the other one to kind of get to that homeostasis point our body wants. And I found that super fascinating. So my right leg did quite well. And unfortunately, I got a couple more infections in my right leg since the surgery. So it started to build up that fibrotic tissue again.
Mm-hmm.
And just thought, you know what, maybe I should give this a try, and we'll see how this goes. And just had a really good meetings with the surgeon here, and just thought, okay, let's go ahead and see how it goes.
I love telling these stories, and I so appreciate you sharing yours, because we want to provide hope and inspire people out there who may think there is no hope for me. And there is. And we want to say, we're not advocating surgery for anyone. We're not telling you
No.
what to do for your condition. You must follow your own medical
Yeah.
advice and your own instincts. However, you've had great success. And I was so excited to hear that you combine the surgical procedures with managing your condition with Lympha Press.
Yeah.
Now that makes my ears perk up. Tell me how you found out about Lympha Press.
Yeah, well, as much as I'm an advocate for the surgeries, you're right. It's really up to the individual and to see if you're the right candidate or not. And it just made sense for me. but you have to think about it as a tool in your toolbox. It's not going to work if you're not going to work on your body in a healthy way, and maintain your lymphedema as best you can with compression, diet, stress relief, exercise are super important. And so if you think of the surgery as a tool, as one of those tools, then it's a better way to look at it rather than thinking
So
it's going to cure it and take it away. I used to have one of the very first editions of the Lymphopress because I got it. I've had lymphedema since I was 5, in my right leg. And so I used to live in Ontario, and I used to go to the Toronto Hospital of Sick Kids for my treatments there until I was 18, and then you graduate to an adult hospital. But I got one of the first Lymphopresses, and it was that green machine, and I think it only had like maybe 8 chambers or something like that. And so I got that when I was a teenager. I think I was like 13 or 14 or something, and used that for a long time as well. So I've
well,
been
what do
using
you
it
like
for a
about
long
your Lympha Press?
time.
What do you like about, I know, right? And so
Mhm,
as a longtime user, what for someone who maybe is not using pneumatic compression or a Lympha Press, what do you
mhm.
like about it?
I like hopping in it at the end of the day, and it just helps take some of that swelling that can accumulate during the day. It just helps take that away. I find it gives me a little bit of pain relief. It just helps move some of that swelling out. So it's kind of like a little bit of a reset button. I love combining it with some other tools. So I'll sometimes wear like my Malio Train ankle pad anklets that have that cushioning around the ankle pad. So it gives that extra kind of squeeze because our ankles can be kind of tricky. Or I'll use the Mobiderm foam, and which is that bumpy foam, and I'll wrap my legs in that and then hop in my pump. And it gives kind of like a really neat kind of massage feel to it. I find it helps break up the fibrotic tissue or any sort of hard areas you might have by
Yeah.
kind of combining some different things together. I love doing like lymph drainage when I'm in it. So I'll lay down and I'll start with my neck and I'll like drain here, and then I'll do my abdomen while it's starting to pump. And it's just I find I get like a really nice benefit to combine those things together.
So one last question about your Lympha Press before we go into
Sure.
your story, because when you said since 5 years old, my heart went, oh, I want to hear about that. But is it easy to use? A lot of people don't use pneumatic compression because they're afraid that it's going to be difficult.
Oh, no, it's super easy to use. I just hop in it. If anything, it's kind of like a nice warm hug because it gets really warm inside. And it's like sometimes I just don't want to get out of it. It's just so comfy in there.
You were 5 years old. What were your
Mhm.
parents noticing that led to your diagnosis?
Well, it came on pretty suddenly. I was just playing at the playground, from what I remember. And by the time I got home, my ankle was swollen enough. I was kind of limping a bit. And so my mom noticed that when she picked me up from the bus at the end of our laneway, I was just like, what's up with her leg? And it took about, I think, 30 different doctors before we finally got like a diagnosis and ended up with that specialist in Toronto at the hospital for sick kids, and was able to sort of get on a good program for lymphedema care there. And they were really great for promoting compression, physiotherapy, exercise. They didn't know a lot about it. I think I was like one of like 3 patients that had
Wow.
lymphedema. So it was really, really rare. Um, and they would just try lots of different things on me because if anything, I was kind of like a learning experiment for them in a way to learn more about the condition. And I was up for that. It was a learning opportunity for me too to see what worked and what didn't. But yeah, they took good care of me, and it really emphasized because they knew so little about it that it really taught me from a young age that I have to be my own advocate. Um, I have to, pay attention to what works for me and what doesn't, and pay attention to my triggers. And exercise was my friend, so they knew that, and they encouraged me to swim, and so I ended up in a competitive swim program, and I did that for a long time, and it was really good for managing my swelling. I did synchro swimming. And with that, you're treading water a lot, kind of vertically. So the pressure on the legs was just perfect. It was kind of a great sport to do as a kid.
So you have a great attitude. And I've spoken with many primary lymphedema patients who in their youth tried to hide their condition. Like they didn't want to
Oh
show that
yeah.
they were wearing compression. They
Yeah.
didn't want to look different from anyone else. And as a result, sometimes they didn't manage their condition as well as they should have because they were busy trying to hide it.
Yeah.
You seem like you were quite well adjusted to the need to manage this condition and, oh, well, this is what it is.
Yeah, like it was ingrained in me. It was still really hard as a kid because like you get teased a lot for, having a swollen leg or lots of different names that kids come up with it and stuff. But I found by being active and being strong and stuff, I got to counteract that in some way that sure kids could say something mean to me, but like I could throw a javelin further than they could. You know what I mean? So I used it as kind of my defense, I guess, to be strong and be healthy. Um, yeah.
Well, you also have taken the lemonade, no, the lemons. You've taken the lemons and made some lemonade by, you mentioned infections and the need for proper skincare. And so this birthed a whole career for you.
Yeah, it did. Sorry, remembering some of that stuff is sometimes hard. Still.
Oh, I don't mean to be insensitive. Sometimes
No, 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 it's
Zoom doesn't let you read feelings as much as you would like to. And I want to take a moment and just honor those feelings and sit with them a minute because there are painful experiences and yet the pain ends up becoming our strength and
it
birthing
does, yeah.
new opportunities, and you find out who you really are through the pain. So I honor you for that. And similar to many of the lymphedema patients I've spoken with, they use that, acknowledging that pain, to give someone watching out there hope that if you are feeling broken, bullied, down, like you want to hide,
Mhm.
hang in there.
Yeah,
Because look at my new friend, Amy. Look at who she is today. Look at the pain she pressed through.
yeah.
So I honor that. And I'm sorry for fast forwarding
No,
to
no, that's
talk about your entrepreneurial venture.
yeah, no, that's okay. It took me a long time to really like accept it as a part of myself. I definitely wanted to hide and didn't want to show my stockings much, like any sort of outfits I'd pick to, minimize that like anyone does. Because you don't necessarily want to draw attention to yourself. But I also knew I had to take care of myself. And I think if it wasn't for swimming and things like that, I think it would have been a lot harder to do that. So finding something that you can do and that you enjoy can make a big, big difference to looking after your lymphedema because it gives you that those positive endorphins that you get from doing that exercise, but also just reminds you to be nice to yourself.
In
Take
fact,
care
one
of
of
your
the
vessel, right?
yeah, one of the things I saw on your Instagram, which by the way, if you want to follow my new friend Amy on Instagram, it's at Nourished Lymph. So you will do that, and I'll put a graphic up to show that. And I also want to do
Perfect.
the graphic for your business as well. But you said on Instagram, fall in love with taking care of yourself.
Mhm. I'm working on that. And the more I work on my inner self, the better I find I can work on my lymphedema and the better choices I make. Like
Mm,
when you really do kind of fall in love with taking care of yourself, then you you give yourself the best. And then you start to feel the best
mm.
version of yourself, which is so important.
So
Yeah.
how do you make the leap to creating a whole skincare line?
Well, when I was in my 20s, like skincare is such a big part of lymphedema care, right? Of just making sure we don't get infections, keeping that dry skin from cracking, because with all the swelling, your skin tends to stretch and it gets dried out. And so skincare was always a really, really big part of taking care of my body. And when I got into my 20s, I couldn't really find any like natural skincare that I really liked, like that didn't have the preservatives in it. It was something safe I could use because our lymphatic system, it's our big toxin removal system, right? So if you've got lymphedema, in some ways that system is impaired. And so it's really important to use as natural as possible so that you're not overburdening your lymph system to remove those toxins that are so often in skincare. Um, and as our biggest organ, I just thought this just makes sense. And so I started making my own soaps and skincare products and creams and things like that. And it just was such a fun thing to do. And I just noticed my skin getting better and just started giving them away to friends. And then I started selling them, and then it became a hobby, and then it became a little business. And I just had so much fun learning about how all these different plants could help with my skincare challenges. And I just love that.
So your point is so well taken. We look at labels before we ingest things,
Hmm.
but do we look at the labels? And maybe many of our viewers do, but I have been remiss because you're right. This is our largest organ
Yeah.
and it absorbs. So
Hmm.
it's really important that what you put on your skin isn't going to negatively impact your lymphatics. Great
Yeah.
point.
So
So
what I went from is I started with, well, how can I like protect my skin? Because that's sort of what I'm told to do is make sure you don't get cracks, like keep infections away, things like that. So I really started from that place of like to make my stuff as clean as possible. So it's protecting and nourishing and stuff. And then I went after that, I started doing some herbalist training and learning more and more about plants, and kind of went into even a more of like preventive medicine kind of mode of just like, what are some different botanicals that I can add to these creams and soaps that are going to like benefit my lymphatic system and make it even stronger, or like help take the burden away, or help it flow better, or like help take some of that inflammation away, or take some of the pain away. And I had so much fun figuring all of those pieces out. And so I really created some different products that can help with pain relief, that can help with inflammation, that can help moisturize as well as help keep you clean, like the soaps.
everybody's on the edge of their seat saying, well, where do I get it? How can I get it? And please give us the contact information. Plantiful, correct?
Yeah, because they're full of plants. And you can order on there. I'm going to have some promotions for March for lymphedema. So that'll be so exciting for all the people out there who want to give it a try. One of my favorite things to use for, because with compression, we got to keep ourselves moisturized, but you don't want that stuff to get stuck into your stockings, right? And so I find looking for any sort of creams or things like that that are heavy but don't have any waxes in them are helpful, because
Mhm.
I find the waxes get really clogged up in your stockings. And so my favorites are like a body butter
Mm.
or a body oil. And especially the body oil after a shower or a bath, because when you combine it with wet skin, it just feels like lotion and it just keeps you soft all day. So it's a nice kind of trick.
That is so great. And we're excited that this interview will run during our month-long celebration of
Oh,
World
wonderful.
Lymphedema Day and Lymphedema Awareness Month.
Yeah.
What does that month mean? What does March mean to someone with lymphedema, someone who's been really immersed in the community for so many years?
I think it's wonderful. It's I find it's getting bigger and bigger every year. Like I remember a few years ago and people didn't really know what lymphedema awareness was, and still doesn't. But it's grown so much. Our community has gotten so big, and I love the events that you're putting on, your round tables, and there's so many events happening in March. I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, I could attend something every day. This is amazing. Like
That's
this is
wonderful.
so wonderful to see so many different people thriving with it and sharing their knowledge of how they're doing that, as well as companies like the one you work for that are really trying to get the word out there and of their patients and how they're managing their condition, I just think it's so wonderful. There's so much awareness now, and I think it's just going to keep growing. It's as somebody with lymphedema, it just makes me feel happy that there's just so much happening, and it's for a really rare condition, it's really a chance to shine a spotlight on it, and for us all to learn from each other.
That's so well said. I do want to leap through the camera and hug you. I remember, 8 years ago when I started with Lympha Press, I found it difficult to connect with the patient population.
Mhm.
That's totally changed
Oh, that's
because of
nice.
digital and Zoom and social media and the fact that people aren't hiding anymore. They
Mhm.
want to be seen and heard. And we are thrilled to shine that spotlight and give you a platform because with every story, someone else's spirits are bolstered. So
Yeah.
what was the biggest surprise for you in your lymphedema journey? Was there anything that was like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And now I need to do that, or I need to think about that?
Biggest surprise. Um, I guess kind of like in the herbal medicine realm, like learning about different traditional medicines like Ayurveda, they consider lymph to be like one of the most important elements of the body and like just critical to health. And where like in a Western medicine world, we don't spend much time on it at all in med school. So that was really eye-opening for me, and it's just it's really opened some doors. So I'm going to take some Ayurvedic training because I really want to learn some more and apply it to myself, and hopefully help others with lymphedema with it too, of just that knowledge.
So when you do that class, come back and let's talk about it again
Yeah.
so you can teach all of our viewers. And since I've taken enough of your time and you're wonderful, is there anything that you want to say to the lymphedema community that's watching? Maybe a word of encouragement to leave people with?
I'm thinking about what should I say. Um, I I think I'm gonna get all choked up.
That's okay. That happens a lot on these
Yeah.
interviews, and that's okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna say is I guess love yourself. Like just don't give up on yourself. That you are worth it and you deserve your love more than anyone else. Yeah. And you'll find the answers. There's lots of different people out there. There's lots of different inspiring stories, different tools, different techniques. And just really listen to you as to what works for you. Because what works for one other person with lymphedema may not be the best tool for you. And it's okay to try it and then it doesn't work. Just learn from those experiences too, so that you can be the best version of you.
Amy Beaith, you are the best version of you.
Thank you.
Spending some time with you today has reset me and reminded me of all the things I appreciate about life. And I just want to say thank you for your time and stay in touch. We are
Yes.
now
Stay in
you're now my new best friend, and we're going to continue to together support and uplift the lymphedema community.
Yes.
And thank you for
Yeah.
tuning in to this edition of the Lymphedema channel. We bring you stories as often as we can. And if you know someone who would make for an inspiring interview, someone as wonderful as Amy Beaith at Nourished Lymph, send them to me at bviola@medsoulsupplier.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day, Amy.
Yes. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.